Hey, welcome to the Black Knight Nation podcast. I'm your host, Sal Introdonato, here with my co-host, Steve Anderson. These are our Thursday night chats, Steve, and we got another special guest for tonight. First off, Black Knight Nation podcast is sponsored by Higher Echelon. Higher Echelon is a company founded by former Army fullbacks coach, former Army officer Joe Ross, and we appreciate Higher Echelon sponsoring this podcast. And we're going to introduce our special guest for tonight. It's Markenson Pierre. Markenson Pierre, thanks for joining us, Markenson.
Hey, thank you very much for having me on. When Steve reached out and gave you the opportunity, I couldn't wait to get on and catch up with everyone.
No doubt, you guys are former teammates here, right, Steve? Going back in the day.
Yeah, Markenson was one of my big brothers, man. When I first got to the Army defense and got to West Point, one of the guys that immediately took me under his wing. That whole group of 09 class, right, 2 years ahead of me. So I mean, it was nice to be able to reach out. We got to catch up a little bit. Kind of perfect timing where we'll cover it, but Markenson's reincarnation at West Point right now scored a touchdown last week, and so it just kind of was fitting to have Pierre on this week and just catch up, man, and then just let the Black Knight Nation fans kind of hear your story and what you're doing now, and we'll kind of get into all that.
Yeah. First, before we start, Markenson, Muck City. Tell us a little bit about Muck City.
So Muck City, it's a small farming town. The name of the city is Belglade. It's about 10,000 people, 40 minutes west of West Beach. Farming town. There's not a whole lot going on other than farming and football. And the soil that we plant our cane, orange, and all the stuff on is very dark and rich, and people call it the muck. So that's where the name comes from. And when I got up to West Point, at the West Point Prep School, Coach Cook kind of gave me the nickname Muck, and it literally has stuck with me to this day. To now, it's on a shirt that I'm wearing. So that's where the name comes from. And I have a picture. That picture I sent you guys with Markens out there in the sugarcane fields chasing rabbits. That's pretty much what we do down here. And there's a whole ESPN documentary that was done on it.
Gotcha. Yeah. When Markens was interviewed, he mentioned Muck City, and I'm like, I gotta find out. I gotta get a little 411 on Muck City there. Tell us about your journey to West Point, because you were recruited by the Bobby Ross staff, right? When you came to West Point, and then there's a little bit of a coaching change, right? So you tell us a little bit about how you got to West Point.
Yeah, so I was recruited by by Coach Ross's regime. I was born in Haiti, and I didn't come to America until I was pretty much 11 years old. So when I came to the States, in the Haitian culture, the Caribbean culture, education is pretty much king. And, my parents, they always kind of, drive that point home. So I was always a really good student and made, good grades and tested well. And I started playing football as a freshman in high school. And because I played soccer growing up, I was a soccer player. And when I started playing football, I liked it. I liked the physicality of it. And by the time I was a senior, I was getting recruited. And I had some very good coaches, at my school. And when West Point came into the picture, I didn't really know what West Point was. But they sat me down and said, listen, like all these other schools that are recruiting you, you need to go to West Point, because as every kid thinks they're going to make it to the next level and play in the NFL. But my coaches told me, listen, you're good enough to get to college and that's it. So go get a good college degree so that way you can, do other things, with your life afterwards. So that was kind of like my path. And I'm sitting here today, proud, alum.
No doubt. So what you first get to West Point, tell us a little bit about how you kind of work your way up to, getting some playing time.
Yeah, so I went to the West Point Prep School first because I wasn't a U.S. citizen when I got accepted to West Point. So I had to go to prep school so I can, because I wasn't 18. I turned 18, took the citizenship test, and Coach Brian Cook actually took me to the testing center to do the test. And after we got the results, I passed. It's a civic test, and we all celebrated. But I got to West Point. Plumstead was in my class. Darren Noose and all those guys, Kenny Rackers, and we got a chance to play on special teams early on. I think the third or fourth game of the season. And from there, I was on special teams pretty much my entire freshman year, and that kind of opened the door for me to where early on I saw the field, and then as a sophomore, we had some injuries where I was able to see the field on defense.
Yeah, getting that early playing time, right? Just getting on the field that freshman year. Not a lot of people get that chance at West Point, right? So I mean, that must have been definitely where you could see. Can you see the bigger picture then, or now?
Oh, I don't think I can see the bigger picture. I was just excited. Well, first of all, to get the opportunity to go out there and play. But in terms of seeing how I feel within the dynamics of the team, it was hard to kind of see that as a plebe because you have so much else on your plate, right? With the academics and the military and just adjusting to life at West Point, where when you get to football, there's a whole other set of responsibilities that come with it, and you don't necessarily grasp all of it at the moment. But eventually, I kind of got it.
Yeah, Mark, let me tell you a little funny story. When I was a freshman, like you just said, you got all your plebe knowledge you got to learn. You got to learn all the cultural norms as far as like cupping your hands, walking against the wall, right? All this kind of stuff, which is weird for me, not including, someone from, Haiti. But I got a little story is my cadet sergeant asked me a bunch of questions my first day down at the company after, football in the summertime, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, how about you tell me the definition of leather? And I was like, how about you tell me what open Bengal cover 2 is, Sergeant?
That is such a Steve response.
Luckily, I had the colonel, Chad Thayer in my company who came to my rescue. But it just kind of goes like, look, I was literally just trying to find a place on the team. I went to prep school too. So me and you kind of already understood kind of the dynamic of the lingo.
Mm-hmm.
But I was trying to play, man. I didn't come to West Point not to play. So the cadet knowledge went to the side, open Bengal cover 2 went to the forefront, and he couldn't tell me what open Bengal cover 2 was, but I could tell him. So.
No, it's interesting because as a plebe, it's so much, right? There's so much on your plate, and we're coming down from the stadium after a full day of literally work, and then you got the academics, and then you got all the duties. One thing I will always remember: one morning we had to call minutes, and I took pride in just trying to do everything the best I can, and I was calling minutes at the top of my lungs. And Sal, minutes are when you just sit in the hallway and go, attention, all cadets. There are 5 minutes until assembly for breakfast, right? It's
You're
crazy,
essentially an alarm clock.
right? And our cadet first sergeant, just like female, about 5'5", she comes out. She's like, those are the best minutes I've ever heard called in this hallway. That made me so proud. I was like, yes.
See, when I was a freshman, I'd always be like, see, guys, it's not that hard. Like, I just did it.
Yeah, it's a very unique place.
So, but, you went to prep school, you got some time on special teams, but more importantly, how did you feel? I always ask this question to all the guys is, as you went from that plebe, right, to now you're kind of like an informal leader to now you're kind of a junior, you get more playing time, and now you're a senior, and you are right. Regardless if you play or not, as a senior, right, you're a leader of a football. You're the leader on that football team, right? How did the culture or the climate change from plebe, muck to senior muck, and then how did you change the way you interacted with the older guys and younger guys as you got more comfortable with the team?
Yeah. So I think you see it as a natural progression. And the one thing I can say about pretty much everyone, or a majority of the guys that go through our program, they're just natural leaders, right? And you're amongst people who just come from that mindset. For me, when I became a junior or senior, having the younger class coming after me, we would have all those things, the captain's practices where, we're leading them. And during those times, you're not so much worried about, okay, am I going to lose my spot to this young guy or what? You're worried about helping them adjust to, obviously on the football field, but also being a good role model for them, within the Corps of Cadets. Because if you just roll the clock back 2-3 years, earlier, you were lost, and had no clue. So for me, it was always about, being someone that they can come to and ask questions, whether it had anything to do with football or not. And I took pride in that because, I had guys like Randy Chastain who helped me, guys like Jordan Murray, guys like Caleb Campbell who did the exact same thing for me. So when I got in a position where I could return the favor for, the classes below me, it was something that I enjoyed regardless of what was going on the football field.
Yeah, that's a big deal, right, Steve? Because you look at so you're 2 years apart on the football field, right? So guys that turned, brought winning back to Army football in that 2010 season learned a lot from Markenson, right? Those safeties that you guys had back there learned a lot. I mean, Donovan Travis is back there, right? I mean, those are guys that learned a lot under the coming up through the ranks, so to speak.
Yeah, no, and I think it was really, we had a heavy prep school. We had a lot of guys that went to the prep school that ended up staying through. But yeah, I mean, I just feel like, those guys kind of allowed, we got to go to the bowl game, but the way we kind of led that team was from, the Frank Scapaticis, the Plumsteads, the Pierres, Donovan, you got, Pierre, you were in the same film room as Donovan and Donnie and young Trimble, right? Because you learned, you were in an injury spot. You were right after Jeremy, but right before Jordan. So you kind of got to see the wide receiver Trimble versus the DB Trimble. So all those kind of guys, you kind of got to, it just kind of kept building on each other over time. So absolutely, Sal, learned a tremendous, especially from, because as a plebe, right, like Caleb and VD and all those guys were kind of like, almost like, I don't want to say like when you're a soldier and you have when you have a lieutenant, like you don't really talk to him that much. You just kind of, you should just kind of watch and learn from the seniors as much as possible. But that junior class is, it's when you're finally like, oh, I got corporal rank. I'm a real boy now. And like start having those relationships. And we had a really good, Chuck Eason, another guy that I would always consider a big brother to me. So it was good.
Yeah. So when I came into the beat was 2007. So that's Steve's freshman year, I believe. And so those are guys like VD and Caleb that you're talking about. And you had that class underneath you that had a lot of good. So, I mean, like we talked about, Steve, that 2010 team, yeah, that was the year you brought it back. But then there was, there's a lot of people that paved the way for you, so to speak. So there's a lot of guys who get credit that came before you, no doubt. So, and I don't know if that's how you felt, Markenson, when they were able to win that bowl game, if you had a little bit of a piece in that, in the guys that kind of came after you.
Let me tell you, I was definitely there celebrating. So, and it's, I feel so close to the program. Obviously, my brother's there. It makes it a lot easier. But even before my brother got there, I'd be in Iraq, and I don't care what is going on. If I'm not on mission, I'm watching, Army football, and it's because obviously knowing everything that goes into it, especially that 2010 team, being so close to it and knowing so many of the guys and having been in a position to help influence them. Even though I wasn't on the field, I felt like that was a big part of me, because the brotherhood is so strong, and it goes across different time periods. But you can have 2 or 3 guys that are 5-10 year time period, but they're still interwoven with each other in so many ways.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about it, Muck. You're an '09 grad, so what? That's 12 years ago.
Yeah, pretty much.
Right. And where are you heading this weekend?
This weekend, I am going to West Point for Markens' senior day.
Yeah, man, it's awesome because I personally I have yet to be to a Michie Stadium football game since I've graduated. I haven't been to one yet. So I've been to a couple Army Navies, been to just random games, or been to bowl games, but I haven't been back to Michie. So that is something that's still on my bucket list. A decade later, from my career. So I'm definitely, I've been busy, having kids and stuff. You know what I mean? Like I gotta stop that.
No, man. I've been back plenty of times, and I've been back like even before Markens was up there. Like I've gone back with B-Rod and Jamal, just different sets of guys, and every time there's always something about the place that just like amazes me. And the more time I spend away, when I come back, the more like I just want to soak it all in. But it'll be very special this weekend, being that obviously having seen Mark, I remember dropping him off at the prep school for his R day and staying for the parade, and and just us hanging out in the city the night before, just the whole thing. And being fast forward 5 years and he's at that point, I feel proud because I feel like, hey, that's a piece of me. But just seeing someone progress from kid off the street in Glade to being where he is now, I'm definitely excited for him.
Yeah, make no mistake about it. I mean, you go there as a boy.
Yeah.
There's and that you can say that about any college, kind of, just by the age. That age time frame that you go through college. But West Point, you go there as a boy, you leave there as a man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I got some skin in this week. Both my brothers went to UMass. My older brother played for UMass, so it's been a lot of crap talking this week for sure, with us coming at a close minus 37.5.
Hey man, I think we'll cover.
Yeah. So
probably like last week, you look at the Bucknell game, right, Muck? I mean, you look at the guys that were able to get a chance, and first off, they had the halftime where they had the lightning delay, right? And you're like, okay, I wanted them to come back and play just as an Army football follower, because I knew in that second half that Monken was going to kind of get more guys involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's going to give more guys a chance to play. I think that's how you build the program. That's how you build the depth on your team too, right? Getting those reps, maybe the young guys getting those reps, and then building on for next year. But then you have your brother, right, who's a senior, who's put all that work into a game, waiting for a chance to play and for a moment like that, right? It must have been just to watch that must have been pretty amazing.
I mean, it absolutely was, and I wish I would have been there, live, but I was traveling in Pittsburgh recruiting some football players. But I think if you look at the reaction from his teammates who were on the field after he scored, it just says a lot. Markens plays mostly on special teams. He hasn't seen the field much on offense, but the influence that he has on the team goes far beyond any carry or anything that he does as a football player. And for me, he's not my child, he's my brother, but I feel some type of way knowing that, again, I've seen this young man literally progress to the point where he's at a place where pretty much everyone there's going to be a leader of some sort in a position where he's not in the limelight, not getting the carries, but he's still able to be a team first guy, have influence, and do it the right way. I feel like a proud dad, but it's very, I'm very happy for him. Obviously, I'm super excited for the team because, they've played well, and the program is in great hands with Coach Monken. And, I just wish I could turn the clock back a little bit and go back for those teams a little bit.
Yeah. I'll tell you, Mark, I've been practicing from the Turkey Bowl tomorrow. And, I'm sore as hell, and tomorrow's the game, so I've been my too hard in practice,
Now I just watch now.
But I know when we were catching up, we kind of talked about this a little bit, but West Point's one of those interesting places, especially with all the stuff going on when you're a core squatter. Is it's one of those places that you don't really enjoy while you're there 100%, as far as like you don't understand. But most of the time you just don't understand the gravity of what you're about to accomplish until really graduation day, and then when you go back as a grad, and that's always something that whenever I reach out to the football players, now, just whenever our paths cross, I'm just like, look, man, you guys you won't understand it, but that you're literally going to love this place once you graduate. So just try to enjoy it as much as possible.
Yeah. And I can tell you, I go back to my high school now. Now that I'm back in South Florida, I go back at least 2-3 times a year. And, I tell those coaches who are still there, right, who was coaching me, who coached Markens, I thank them, because if it wasn't for them, I would have went probably some other school, some other state school, and there's no telling where I would be today. Going to West Point is probably the single most, the best decision I've made in my life, because, and you've seen it, after you get done with West Point, there's literally everything that I've done. And I can truly say being a West Pointer had a lot to do with it. It's not just about, you get this job. It's like you walk into a room and people find out you're a West Pointer. It's instant credibility. It just gives you opportunities that you probably wouldn't have gotten. And I go back to West Point now as I'm happy. I'm like, man, this place is so pretty. Like, it's so beautiful. I just want to take pictures. But when I was there, I would see all the people taking pictures. I'd be like, what are you taking pictures for? Like, this is miserable. But being that Markens is where he is, he has a close group of friends who they're always calling, and I'm in a position where I can tell them, like, hey, listen, just go through it. It's gonna be worth it in the end. I'm like, well, you're saying that now because you're all done. I was like, listen, we had to take chemistry and physics. Y'all don't. So, but it's a very unique thing to to see it on the other side.
Well, I always make this joke where how you coaches got to go to the just like you were just talking about the recruiting board, like, hey, who are we going to recruit this year? That's like every Army football player every year, like, all right, am I going to stay here this year? Am I going to go somewhere else? Am I going to do this again? But you kind of mentioned how you're down in South Florida now. You're up in Pittsburgh recruiting. So, Mark, what do you do now, man?
So I'm a lawyer full time. I do pretty much business litigation down here in Miami. I work for a firm in Miami, but I also launched a sports agency, Muck Sports, 2 years ago. I'm an NFLPA certified agent where I represent guys who are going from college to the league. Working with me are Arlen Jenkins, William Wedley, and then Darren Newsom is also working with us. So pretty much you took part of the defense and we created an agency. So second full year, we have one client who's on the practice squad with the Falcons. He's a running back. And interestingly, believe it or not, that's a West Point connection kind of helped get the ball rolling there because one of the scouts for the Falcons was a former West Point football player who I reached out to, and he connected me with the scout for the Midwest and pretty much started the relationship. So it really doesn't matter like what you're doing. There's a West Pointer doing it somewhere that you can connect with. So
yeah, I think we've had the person you're talking about on this podcast, Justin Schaff, right? Is
Yep.
that who you're talking about?
That's Justin. Yep. He definitely opened that door for me. And I mean, obviously the Falcons, once they got to take a look at Caleb, they liked them. But being a brand new agent with zero contacts, and I'm trying to figure out, okay, I have a client. How in the world am I gonna? Because he's not a guy who's gonna be a top 100 or top whatever. So you really have to put in the work as an agent to get him an opportunity. And I'm just looking around, and I saw Justin was with the Falcons. I had never spoken with Justin. I knew who he was because I knew he was a football player. Reached out to him. Literally, you would have thought like we were like best friends, and it's that brotherhood. And it really went from there. And now Caleb is playing with the Falcons. So,
yeah. Maka, there's a couple guys on Army's roster right now that may have a chance at the NFL coming up. Do you look into those guys possibly as maybe adding them to Muck Sports?
Any guy who's especially coming from West Point, and this is going back to last year we had Radigan. I'm still very close to him. Good guy. We still talk. The year before that, you had Elijah and Cole. So I, being a guy who played there, I know who's got some of the opportunity or the skill set to make it to the next level, and I definitely reach out. It hasn't worked out yet, landing one of those guys from West Point, but I'm definitely not going to stop trying because ultimately it will. And I think some of these guys were a little bit apprehensive, of being newer, and saying, well, we're going to be priority free agent guys. We want someone who can, who's got a Rolodex of contacts. But, I'm in a position where I've started building that. And I think, in a year or two, I'll be in a place where I can, go to West Point, go back home, and present myself as someone who can not just provide a great service to those guys, but literally be an extension of the brotherhood and take it from there. So.
Yeah, no doubt. When you look at the team right now, the defense that they have right now, who you see that can be next level guys? I know there's, a lot of the TV guys say there's conversations about a few guys, but who do you see are the next level guys on that defense?
I mean, so starting with the line, I'm trying to remember his name. Is it
Nolan Cockrell?
He's got some good talent. And then the linebacker 53, obviously he's shorter on the shorter end, but he can run and tackle. And then on the back end, I think there's 22 or 20. I can't remember which one.
Oh, yeah, both of those guys, Cunningham and Broughton.
Yeah, it's crazy because I hosted both of them at my house here with Markens last summer. So, and being a service academy guy, it's always going to be someone you're going to cut your teeth at special teams and make a role for yourself, like Radigan just did, and that's what all three of those guys in the back seven can absolutely do if they get the opportunity. And I think there's plenty of buzz in the scouting community based on the Northeast scouts that I talked to about all three of those guys. So I think they'll get a shot. And definitely next year will be a nice one.
Andre Carter, right? Andre Carter is just like Steve. I mean, he continued it against Bucknell. I mean,
where did he come from? He just came out of nowhere.
Missouri City, Texas, I believe, is his hometown. But he went to a prep school in Connecticut for 1 year. And you know what? I wrote in a story for our website this week about how I think that should be some postseason honors should be coming his way. I know. I think that he's had a great year. The tackle stats aren't going to be there, but the sacks are there. Mm-hmm. The forced fumbles are there. The interceptions there now. I mean, he's had quite a season.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a heck of a year. For some point, he was leading the nation in sacks. The good thing about where we are right now as a program, number one, thankfully the policy is that, they can waive the service where guys can go right away. That's huge. And I think a guy like Steve definitely would have got an opportunity if, the rules were different, back in his time coming up. And then at this day and age, if you can play, it doesn't matter where you play. They will find you. Like I'm recruiting a young man out of Central Connecticut State, right? That is FCS, but it really doesn't matter. If you got skills, and the scouts will find you. If they don't find you and another team does, they're gonna get fired. So,
yeah, no doubt. Pretty much have gone over a lot of stuff. Is there anything, Muck, that you'd like to talk to us about? Maybe about your career, maybe after, maybe about when you were serving in the military, or is there anything you'd like to add to this?
Yeah, I'm still serving. I'm in the reserve. Got promoted to major a couple years ago. It's very different from active duty. Doing it full time and being, around people who do it full time is definitely a different perspective from people who are 1 week in a month. But I still, to this day, enjoy putting on the uniform and serving, keeping that connection. But just my time in the military on active duty had ups and downs, but every moment kind of set me up to where I am now, from, doing stateside missions, going to, training centers and deploying, all of those things, very stressful times. And I think I can remember the month and a half period in Iraq where I lost like this much of hair on this side and then on that side, and then I decided to shave it bald. I can remember like the month and a half period. I remember it like it was yesterday. But in hindsight, all of that stuff are lessons that I took with me in my civilian career now that come in very helpful in dealing with people and dealing with adversity, and still seeing the brighter side of things. So I really wouldn't trade it for anything other than a few Army Navy ones. But I'm glad that Markens got 3, and hopefully, he's got 2. Hopefully, he gets a 3rd this
year. Yeah. Muck, are you the same? Are you in the same branch? Same MOS?
So I don't think they got their branch yet. So I don't know what he's going to branch. I think he's looking at armor. I was logistics officer. I did ordnance and logistics. So
is that what you're doing in the reserve still?
No, that's what I'm doing in the reserves. Yeah, that's what I do.
Oh,
it's very different taking off the warrior hat during the week and then go be a loggy on the weekend. But
your brother's thinking about going armor, huh?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, man. Well, I hated being in that thing. So.
I told him, man, you need to go loggy or go hard. I mean, he's doing a lot better than I did with that. Part of it is because of me, because I went through West Point. I didn't have a brother that just went through that could kind of walk me through. Markens has the benefit of calling me and was like, hey, I have this issue. And so he's doing very well academically, and he's in a position to pretty much kind of do whatever he wants to do. I'm happy for him.
Yeah.
So that's good.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I think branch is coming up in a week or so, right? The week after Thanksgiving, I pretty much think so. So seniors will find out. Hey, 27 seniors are going to be honored on Senior Day Saturday against UMass, and Markenson Pierre is one of them. And Markenson, we really appreciate you having you on tonight, catching back up with you. It's been great to just hear your stories about how you got to West Point, about your brother and how that relationship has grown, and man, thanks so much. Great hearing from you.
Thank you very much for having me on. It's definitely a pleasure connecting with you guys again. And I'm pretty sure we'll be seeing each other very soon at a game or somewhere. So
yeah, Mike, we'll link up. I'm actually heading to Orlando over Christmas time, so I still know that's about like 8 hours or whatever it is. From
it's about 3.5 hours.
3.5
hours. Long, but it ain't that long.
So, but always good seeing you, brother, and I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story.
Thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it, fellas.
All right, beat UMass.
Beat UMass. Let's go.